and welcome to Can TV 21 Hotline. Let's talk etiquette. Oh, I love that word, etiquette. But please, join me. My name is Nathan Wright, and I'm the Executive Director of the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois, one of the awesomest organizations in the country. Look us up online, get in touch with us, all those great things, because we are dealing with a subject that's so profound. But let me give you my number so you can call me. We're at 312-738-1060. 312-738-1060. Call me. Oh, I want to hear from you today. Please give me a call. But just to bring you up to speed on where we're at for this show, we're going to go back to last week because we didn't finish up the show we were working on last week. Now remember, what did I tell you? I said that we're going to be covering two primary subjects going forward. One is etiquette-centered mentoring. The other subject is etiquette-centered parenting. I'm a parent, and I've raised 3 children. I have a pretty good idea how to do this fairly well. All of them are healthy, out living a productive life. None of them have never ever been arrested or any of that kind of behavior. And so as a parent, I'm very, very proud of the accomplishment myself and my wife did in raising our 3 children. And so with that knowledge and with that experience, we're here to share, and I'm here personally to share some of the things I think are so critical to the success of your children. Now remember, as a parent, what is our role as a parent? And that role is fundamental. That role is raising your child to be successful and productive in society. That's what you're raising them, so they can be self-sustaining, so that they can take care of themselves and they can contribute to the betterment of humanity. That's your job, to prepare them, to school them, to educate them, to give them the guidance that they need to be able to be successful. And that's, after all, that's what parents are here to do, to raise a child to go forward and live a productive, wholesome, healthy life. And if you can do that, then you've accomplished what it is to be a parent. Now remember, last week we talked about this subject here, and I'm going to put it up on the overhead so that you can see exactly what this subject is in parenting, because we're going to be talking about parenting today. Next week we're going to be talking about mentoring, because those two things really kind of go together, and you will get the sense of it as we move forward with our shows. Etiquette-centered parenting is a 20-year program in teaching social values. You cannot let the television decide your child's social values. You cannot let what goes on in school determine your child's social values. You're the parent. You're responsible for their values. Whatever those values may be, you are the one who are supposed to be setting forth what your values are, because that is your child. You birthed that child. And therefore, the values that child is raised with should be your values. Whether they're religious values, moral values, whatever those values are, it's your job as a parent to give your child that kind of social, moral upbringing. And some of us started our children out in church, and it's part of their moral values. Some of us took time to teach our children our history as to what our social values were. And those values, once upon a time, was considered like, class values, middle class values, upper class values. Whatever your values are, you want to pass those values on to your child, right? That's what parenting is. That's what it's all about. And it's a 20-year mission to be able to do that. So when you're thinking about having a child, you need to be thinking about the next 25 years of your life. A big portion of your life is going to be spent and devoted and invested in raising that child, okay? And giving that child all of the tools that that child is going to need to be successful. You can't depend on other people to raise your child and give your child social values and teach them those things. It's critical because those other mentors, and we're talking about mentoring, right? Those other mentors are going to certainly instill all of those values that you may not even be aware that they are putting into your child's mind. You know, they have a portal, and they use that portal to get into your child's mind. As an example, cartoons. They're teaching your child values, social, moral values within those cartoons. Okay? And some of it's so subtle, and it starts at such a young age. And therefore, you have to be able to scrutinize whether or not you want your child exposed to these values that are coming through the TV in the form of some cartoons. Okay? And so, if you would just simply take time and view a few of them to see if they meet your standards, then maybe. There's so much research online. You can Google a lot of those shows to get a breakdown of what they are actually teaching your child. Because once those values are infixed in your child's mind, they may not manifest or surface until your child is 15, 16, 18, 20 years of age. See? So you have to protect your child like you protect your house with a lock on the door. You protect your vehicle with a lock on the door. And so you have to protect your child by making sure you go through the process of determining what your child is exposed to is good for your child. Those first 8 years are critical. Please, parents, believe me, they are critical. And so it's up to you to decide what your child should be exposed to. And if you do that well, I guarantee you, you're going to get just an awesome human being out of this. You want to produce the greatest human being alive. This is how serious it is. No, you may not produce a Martin Luther King, a Gandhi or someone on that level, but you may produce a wonderful human being, a sensitive human being, a caring human being, a human being that has passion and empathy. Those are the kinds of people we need to be producing, okay? You're in this process like everyone else is in it, so you're going to have to really, really work at this to make it successful. And one of the other things we covered last week for this etiquette-centered parenting is this subject, okay? Let me put this up here for you. Etiquette-centered parenting is placing less focus on fun and games but more on securing their financial well-being in their adult lives. So what does this really represent? This is about how well they're going to be in terms of being self-sustaining and having all the skills and knowledge that they would need to be able to be productive, to be able to support themselves. One of your jobs is to say, when that child is born, I have to start educating my child so that my child won't be dependent on anyone. Anyone. They're going to be competent and capable of supporting themselves. So what does that mean? You have a timeline between birth until they enter college or go into a skilled trade or something like that. Whatever their vocation is, you have an X number of years. Now, within those years, you're going to be breaking those years out into days. And every day is 24 hours. And within each of those days, there's a certain amount of time that you should be devoting to educating your child. There's so much on this computer here, on YouTube. There's just so many subjects. They don't ever have to watch a TV. They don't ever have to watch a cartoon. It's right here on this computer. You want them to learn history? That's important. They need to know their history. That's a great subject. You need to start them at an early age in learning their history. I'm not sitting here just because I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here because of the thousands of my ancestors who came before me. See, I need to know about my ancestors who came before me. I need to know what they experienced. What did they contribute to this society? If I don't have a sense of their contribution, then who am I? See? And so I need to know that history in order to understand who I am. And therefore, I'm able to teach my son and my daughter their history so they'll understand where they came from and who they are. And the ones that came before them and made a contribution to them being here. I didn't get here all by myself. My parents didn't get here by themselves. My grandparents didn't get here by themselves, and so on and so forth. So there is a history. Everything around us is based on our history. This didn't happen like that. This is evolution, and there's a history to it. So you want to be able to teach your child about history. That's one subject. But my point is, you have the opportunity as a parent to select what your child sees and learns. And it's right here before you, and you can do it. So all those other fun and game activities, most of it is a waste of your child's time. Believe me, a waste of your child's time. Video games, sitting around for hours on end, trying to kill somebody or kill something. And what is that doing to your child's psyche? Is it dehumanizing your child? Is it putting things in your child's head that 10, 15 years from now your child will have a gun in his hand and think nothing of shooting somebody down? Is that what you're preparing your child to become? So those kinds of activities that's labeled as fun, yeah, that's how they sell it and market it to you. Oh, this is so much fun. Yes, wonderful fun. Killing, shooting, that's fun. See, you don't want your boy child especially to even have any kind of notions like that. See, so you have to monitor the things you do under the label of fun and games. Okay? So if you do that, you can create all the fun you want to create for your child that's healthy, wholesome, and enjoyable fun. Now, of course, with me, I come up at a time where, we played very simple games, that was fun to play. And those games out there, you can go online and find all those older games that were fun and wholesome games to play. It doesn't involve any trickery, any skullduggery, any lying or deception. Those are the kinds of games you should play with your child, and you can do that. And everything is right here, so it's not an excuse that you can't think of anything to do with your child in terms of fun and games. But you want to minimize it so that 24 hours is not overly devoted to fun and games. You want to be able to get some education there of all kinds. And there's tons of education, that you can start teaching your child at an early age. Okay? Now, I'm going to move on to the next subject. Let me get this set up for you. I think you're going to find this to be a very interesting subject here. Okay? Now, etiquette-centered parenting is carefully screening the children you allow your child to associate with and have a serious conversation with the parents of the children you approve of. You got that? You read it? Okay, very, very, very important. And why is that? Why do you need to screen the children your child associate with? This could be a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old. You don't know what this other child has been exposed to. That's number one, or what this child has seen with their own eyes. And how this may give this child some notions that what they viewed is acceptable. Okay? Just think back when you were young, there's kinds of things that happened in your life that wasn't quite as it should be with someone that you considered to be your friend. Okay? And realize that having your child just simply because this is a neighbor's child, or even simply because it may be a relative's child, that somehow you can allow your child to be with this individual here. Now, I'll tell you an interesting story that happened in my own life, and I know this for a fact. My daughter, this happened When she was, I would think maybe 5 or 6 years old, we had a neighbor, and he had a little boy. My neighbor had a little boy. He was about her age, and he kept trying to get my daughter all alone by himself. Okay, and we were a little suspicious. I was in particular a little suspicious while he was trying. We were at their house while he was trying to get her all alone so he could play with her. Okay, and then I made sure that that didn't happen. I made him stay in plain view. But later I learned from another uh, person in the community, a neighbor, that he had did something with another little girl, had her pants down in the hallway. Okay, and this individual walked in and caught them, and so it told me that I did the right thing in making sure that he did not pull off alone by herself somewhere, and something happened to her. Okay, so these things do happen to children. But you are the parent, and you have to make sure that your child isn't exposed to any of any kind of behavior like that. So you have to screen your children's friends, even up until they're in their teens, to make sure that your child isn't exposed to some things that you wouldn't agree to, or you wouldn't prefer, or you wouldn't be okay with. Okay? Because other people's children may have been exposed to all kinds of things. Just simply because they are polite and nice to you doesn't mean that they may not attempt to expose your child to something that you wouldn't approve of. Okay? So this is why who your child associates with is so important in terms of what kind of person they will ultimately become. And you need to have these conversations with your child about some of the things so they'll be aware of what to expect and what to resist and what to reject once they see it being presented to them. That's important. You want your child to be wholesome, healthy, without any kinds of issues that occurred to them when they were growing up that may plague or haunt them later in their life. And it happens every day. And sometimes these incidents may not manifest until they're in their 20s, 30s, or even 40s. Something happened to them when they was a child that traumatized them. So it's your job as their parent to make sure that you are limited as best you can to make sure they aren't exposed to something that you wouldn't be in support of or agree with. So make sure that the friends that you select to allow your child to associate with are well monitored and making sure that they aren't exposed to something that you wouldn't want them to be exposed to, okay? This etiquette-centered parenting is just such an awesome subject because it allows you to focus on those things that's going to help your child become a great human being. Etiquette is a critical component to your child's social abilities and stabilities. Okay? And with those abilities, your child will go out and understand how to navigate in this society using good manners as their platform to open doors of opportunity for themselves. That sensitivity that comes from etiquette will allow them to understand whomever they're dealing with and how to relate and interact with that individual using the best of the Queen's manners. And I say Queen's manners because we are an English-speaking people and our values come from that wonderful country called England. See? So, keep that in mind in terms of your efforts in raising your child. So I do want to take a moment here to talk about our program. And that program is Parent-Child In-Home Etiquette Training. I just want to go off on that for one moment here before I move on to our next subject, okay? With this etiquette centered parent, I think last week we covered the first three, so I'm going to skip over those and add these last 2, 4, and 5 to that. Now, I know you won't be able to see this little tiny writing, so I'm going to have to read it off to you. Okay, now this one was, well, at the top there's 3, but I'm going to go on down to 4. Teach your child the meaning of kindness. Now, this is into this whole etiquette centered reason and logic behind your etiquette centered philosophy in terms of raising your child. Teach your child the meaning of kindness. Because believe me, the studies are already out there. It's been doubly proven that those children with good manners, even in kindergarten, will turn out to be much better citizens and more productive in their adult life simply because they had good manners taught to them at home. In fact, there was a study by Pennsylvania State University and Duke University, a 25-year study that tracked kindergarten, over 700 children. They tracked these kids from kindergarten through adult life. And the data is right there online. You can look it up. Pennsylvania State University and Duke University, 25-year study. And the evidence is so clear. Those children who had good manners in kindergarten turned into outstanding citizens, productive, employed, better educated than the ones who had poor manners, who had bad manners, who had atrocious manners. Okay? So the benefit in giving your child this social skill called manners is just enormous. It's enormous, and you will see the difference. Because what are your goals as a parent? What are your real goals? Your real goals is to invest 20 years of raising your child so that your child will have a wonderful, productive life for the next 60, 70, 80 years. See? You nurture, you develop, you educate, you guide, you give them the right values, the values that's going to be lifelong values. And then when you send them out into the adult world, where they're going to spend the majority of their life, you want to give them the kind of life for the next 60, 70, 80 years maybe, that they will have enriched the world around them, not only themselves, but the world around them. And that's what you have the opportunity to do as a parent. See? So it's on you to invest that time to make sure your child has all the skills and the qualities of character that is necessary to be successful. And I'm not talking about monetary success. I'm not talking about that at all. Because what you teach your child to become, they'll pass it on to their children. See? And their children will do the same thing for their children. So you can impact the next 50, 60, 100 years based on what you do with your child for that 20-year time period. Okay? Okay, real quickly. A, teach your child to treat others the way they would want to be treated. That's a quality of character. See? And you want to instill that kind of quality of character. Now, these rules that we have here for in-home etiquette training, you take one of these a day, and you talk to your child about that one subject, and you dialogue with them for the 5, 6 days of the week. And by the time they get into 8th grade, into high school, they'll know it. It'll be so ingrained in them, they won't even have to think about it. They'll just respond. Okay? Next, teach your child to be sympathetic towards others who may experience some misfortune. The world we live in is taking the heart and soul out of our children because we are exposing them to all kinds of violence and treachery and things that is not healthy mentally for them. So you need to teach this discipline, this value system here to your child. Be sympathetic to someone who experienced a misfortune. Well, anyway, we'll go on to next week and we'll talk about etiquette-centered mentoring, but I want to put this up real quick for you so you can get in touch with us. That's our number there, 312-473-2942, and that's our website. Please visit us, and at the very bottom, I'll be happy to receive your emails and respond to you. I'll send you a copy of our 5-day in-home etiquette training. You can just use it for the next 10, 15 years, and you'll never get tired of it. With that said, I'd like to say good evening. Looking forward to next Wednesday and an awesome show on mentoring. Thank you for watching and have a very, very good evening.